Welcome to Defiance of Silence, a Sacred Witness. This is a space for survivors, healers, and witnesses to share their truth. Here we stand against the silence that isolates us and embrace the silence that allows us to be truly heard. I'm Valerie, your host, a U.S. Army veteran, nurse, and a survivor. Together, we will discover the power of being witnessed and the healing that follows. A gentle note, though, this podcast includes conversations about sexual trauma and abuse. Please listen with care and honor your own well-being. Thank you for being here to witness today's conversation.
Hi.
Here we are. Hi.
Here we are.
Here we are. So first I want to welcome you, Susan. This is my friend Susan, everyone. Susan is coming to us from Virginia, and she lives there with her husband, and she has a farm, which is really exciting. She has a farm. So she actually has 8 grandchildren and 4 children, correct?
3
children.
3 children.
8 grandies. I love that you call them grandies. That's so
Grandies.
cute. So Susan actually is one of the most amazing people that I know. She takes the promise of hope and overcoming wherever she goes. So whether she's speaking to a large group or in the coffee shop, she just makes you feel seen. And I have definitely felt seen by you. So I brought her here today because Susan was the first to encourage me really to tell my story publicly. And if you heard the first episode of this podcast, you know a little bit about that, what's happened to me. So about 12 years ago now, Miss Susan and I were in church together, and she really encouraged me to openly share my story and said that it needed to be done. And I said, no, no, not doing it. But she truly did encourage me that we're just going to stay bound if we don't speak the truth. And so I just want to thank you for helping me be a truth teller. So that's why you're here today.
Here we are.
And I am just so blessed and excited that my listening friends get to hear a little bit of your story. And part of your story is why I can tell my story. So, we're not alone, right? We're in it together.
Trauma kids stick together.
That's right. We find each other. Is that what we say? So you were really the first one to hold space for me, and really just let me breathe and be seen for who I am. So with that, I'm forever grateful. You're a classy lady. So I'm excited to hear.
I love you.
Love you too. And I'm really excited to hear what God is doing in your life and what he brought you from. And I know that the listeners are going to be blown away by your story. And the name of this podcast is Defiance of Silence. And the reason we do that is because if it's in the dark, it's going to stay there. So when we say it comes out, right? It's out. And then we hold space, which is that sacred witnessing. So it can't cause any shame. And that's what we're here to do. So wherever this conversation, so wherever this conversation goes today, that's where it's supposed to go. And so we're just going to hold space for each other and our listeners. And so you want to start just by telling me a little bit before you get into your story of how you grew up.
Well, I was the 7th of 8 children, and it was chaos, and it was just absolutely lovely and tragic at the same time. It was, my dad left when I was 9. So there were 5 of us left at home. My older 3 siblings, 2 of them had just gotten married. My oldest sister had just left for the airlines. She was flying for Eastern Airlines. Oh, wow. And my dad left, and he really had been gone for a couple of years. Really, we barely saw him. And my sisters, there were 3 of us at the end. They called us the 3 little girls, and we really felt that we got the best part because we got to have our mom, and we didn't go through the abuse of my dad. We witnessed it as children, but we didn't really have to live through it like my older siblings did. And so we felt great about that. But there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of just generations of drinking. And so, but all along that, my mom just was the keeper of fun and love and joy. And she tried so hard. She worked so hard to keep us all sure-footed. In that, we didn't talk about a lot. Oh, we just don't talk about that, and a lot of things just got buried, or it was so important to march on that we weren't allowed to stop and talk about it. Or did that bother you? We just needed to move on to the next thing because we were all in survival. I mean, there wasn't really a living. My mom worked full time. She came home. We had sports. We had, all the things. And she tried to keep it all together. And she was just absolutely amazing. So, in that, so I started out today. I started out when you asked me to do this, talking about the trauma of sexual abuse and rape. But then for the past 2 days, I've just had this memory that keeps coming up. And I think really it kind of forms it formed a platform in my life. There were two things. One, I got high when I was 12 and with my siblings, and that really changed the trajectory of my life because that changed my friends and everything. But I was always a really responsible girl and always really good and trusted. Everybody trusted me, and I was the typical peacekeeper. And so my aunt and uncle trusted me to babysit. I started babysitting when I was 9, and by the time I was 12, I was spending weekends babysitting my cousins. My aunt and uncle would go away, and they would leave me with my
Wow.
cousins.
That is
Yeah.
really young to be babysitting. Oh my goodness.
And so when I was 12, my aunt and uncle invited me to go to Florida with them. And this is where I was going to go. I wasn't planning on going here, and here I am.
Well, this is how we
So
witness.
they asked me to go to babysit. My cousins were 3 and 6 years younger than me, and I had to always babysit them. So they asked me to go with them to watch the kids. And my cousin from another family, another one of their siblings, they invited her just because they thought they'd take one from each family. And so she went as well, and she was 2 years older than I was. So we went to Florida. We stayed with my aunt and uncle. My aunt in Florida that lived in Florida didn't care for me. So she neglected me, made fun of me when I wasn't in the room, when I could hear her and things. So we were in Florida, and she was just treating me terrible. And we always kind of joked, because when I was in high school and I was with my mom and my sister, we lived, just the three of us were left in the house. She would send Christmas cards addressed to my mom and my sister.
Oh, wow.
She would say, and we
Wow.
have no idea. We have no idea why
So
she was
unusual.
like that. It was so weird. But anyway, my uncles, we went swimming. And my cousin was going. She was 2 years older than me. So I was 12, and I was all excited. I went and bought my own bathing suit. And it was a two-piece. It was the first time I'd ever had a two-piece bathing suit. And I was so excited. I had to talk my mom into it, and, wore her down until she let me buy it. And we went swimming, well, with my aunts and uncles and my cousin. And I jumped in the water, and I got out, and my bathing suit was see-through. And I had no idea because I had just purchased it. Well, my uncle started making fun of me. I was 12.
Mm.
Well, you don't even need a bathing suit. So while we're swimming, they talked my cousins into taking off my bottoms.
Oh,
And so they were in the pool. Everybody was in the pool, and they chased me. I was screaming. don't take off my bottoms. Well, you can see through them anyway. There's no reason for you to have them on.
Oh my goodness.
And they talked him into it, and they took it off. They took my bathing suit off in the pool with my aunts and uncles and my cousins. And I think about that, and I think there's two things. One is I was fatherless. There's two things you can do for a fatherless child. You can love them and build them up, or you victimize them.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And my cousin, who was my uncle's brother's daughter, they would never have treated her like that because it's his brother. But I didn't have a dad. And so it's like the bald eagle that gets the weak little duckling and, isolates it, and they pick on it. So that starts of where my mindset was. So I asked for it. I bought a see-through bathing suit.
Wow.
So there you are.
Yeah.
At 12.
Yeah. And that 12-year-old didn't know how to deal with that.
No. So I never told anybody. I mean, everybody laughed it off. They thought it was hilarious that they picked on me. They kept my bathing suit bottom. They, tossed it around, played keep away. And
at 12 years old,
at 12,
I can't even imagine that. I'm sorry
No.
that happened to you. I'm real sorry that happened to you.
And so, I started smoking pot, drinking, smoking cigarettes when I was 12. This was later that Christmas, that year after that. And my life changed then because I changed my friends. You just start hanging out with a different crowd. And so we had a family cabin, a family friend that had a cabin. And the adults, the kids, everybody got high. I mean, I didn't get high in front of my mom, but if I was there without my mom, I did with the adults. And so I have no idea why I was up there. I was 14. I went up there to this cabin, and the adults were there, and there were younger adults. And then I think I went up there with my sister. I'm not sure. But everybody was smoking pot and drinking, and we were wasted. And we, just drinking and just wasted. And so upstairs in this cabin was a beautiful log cabin in the middle of the woods. It was 160 acres of woods, and this cabin was just amazing. And upstairs there were 7 beds. And so it was just a wide open space with 7 beds, 7 king or queen size beds or double beds or something. So I was in one of them, just passed out. We just all went to bed. And then suddenly this 20-year-old, the nephew of the person who owned the cabin, crawled in. And I was drunk and sleeping. And he told me to keep my mouth shut because if I woke up the adults in the room, I would get in trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Of course, it's always to keep silent, right?
Right.
So don't say anything. And I woke up in the morning and I had no clothes on. And it was still dark. And I could hear him downstairs with the adult that was upstairs. And she was screaming at him, "What did you do?"
Oh boy.
And so she knew, and she kicked him out. So it wasn't even light yet. I could hear him yelling downstairs. And so he left. But nothing was ever said. Nothing was ever done. Nobody knew except for her and him and me. And so I was silent. I thought it was my fault. I was too drunk. I flirted with him,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, you were
know, all
14. I mean,
all the things. I'm 14 years old,
yeah.
and I thought, oh, this is how I am. I'm like my older siblings. I had seen the
Wow.
sex, drugs,
Sure.
all of that, all of the adult, um, or semi-adult people in my life. So I stayed silent. So it was quiet. And I think about um, the lion roaring and looking for his prey. In 1 Peter 5:8, it says, be well balanced and always alert, because your enemy, the devil, roams around and incessantly like a roaring lion looking for prey to devour. So just like that bald eagle, he's
Yeah.
just looking for prey, and I'm fatherless. I don't have a covering.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have, you know, everyone around me is trying to survive. There's nobody there carrying there to protect. So at the ripe age of 14 and a half, I stopped smoking pot. That's it. I don't like it.
That was
I'm
such a
going to
good
give it up.
decision, Susan. I'm so proud of you.
That was
Oh,
it. I'm not going to smoke pot anymore. I don't like the being out of control and
yeah.
all of that. And I just had shame, and then I had anything goes, really,
Yeah.
because then it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
already did that and it's been done.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, well, and I know that was part of my story too, is this has happened to me. So, mm,
I thought that was
okay.
me. I
Yeah.
thought I asked
Yeah.
for it. I thought it was me. So I just kept flirting. And so I had a boyfriend through high school, and he was abusive. I had a couple of other boyfriends in high school. And then I got married when I was 18, and he was abusive, and he kept me quiet and isolated me. He was in the military, so I moved with him, so it was easy to isolate me. And I just kept my secret. I just still kept my secret. I never talked about, anything that ever happened to me that way. Um, and just carried that shame and just always thought, this is what I deserve. I was living in this life. I was being controlled, and I had my daughter, which was just lovely, but I smoked cigarettes and drank coffee, and that was and existed basically.
Yeah.
Then life just went on, and I got divorced, remarried for a minute, just as I'm dragging my young child through all of that. And then I gave my heart to Jesus when I was 28. And I didn't kind of. There was no kind of in my life. I went all in, and it
Of
was
course
just
you did.
everything.
Of course you did. Of course you did. I love it.
I'm sure I was the obnoxious friend that just talked about Jesus all the time and what he could do for you. If he's doing it for me, he can do it for you. And but he came to give me life. And just like John 10:10 says, it's on my license plate. My license plate is BioZoe. I'm a biology teacher, so it's life, or you can have life more abundantly. In John 10:10, Jesus says, I came to give you life more abundantly. But still, I hadn't told anybody. And so at about that time, I told my sisters about what happened to me when I was 14. And they had no idea, but it felt such relief. And at the same time, I gave my heart to the Lord. Um, Four of my other siblings all did at the same time.
Oh,
And
wow.
my one brother had gotten saved and gave his heart to the Lord. 15 years before that. And so he had been praying for all of us, and it was ugly for him, but he had been praying for us all that time. So the devil kills, steals, destroys. Jesus brings life. And my life, when I brought Jesus in, was really dark. I just say, like, I just kind of plopped on the floor with my daughter, and here we are. This is us. Do something with us. And when I told my sisters, it's still, I just lived life, and I was all in, and I just worked and prayed and loved the Lord. And I don't know how to live outside of his word and outside of the Holy Spirit. I just don't. I follow him, and I'm obedient. And all of a sudden, I thought, I need to tell my story. There's so many parts of my story. There's so many things, so many facets of my story that can touch different things. And in Revelation 12:11, it says the word of your testimony and the blood of the Lord. And you can't tell your story and not have it touch someone, because it's ingrained in us. Jesus told stories. In Mark 4:22, it says, for everything that has been hidden will eventually be brought into the open, and everything secret will brought to light. Isn't that what we're doing? That's what we're doing right now. We're bringing it to light.
Yes.
Because we hold these secrets and we think that we're protecting, but we're not. And just like what this space is, the sacred space, we have to protect who we share it with. It has to be safe.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that I know for me, a lot of my healing journey in the beginning is I didn't know how to determine if something was a safe space or someone was a safe space. So first started telling my story, I was like, I got to tell everyone. I got to tell everyone all the things and all the different rabbit trails and all the things, like you just said, like your story can touch. I mean, there's like tentacles off of it, all different directions.
Right.
Like
right.
you can have
Which
this
testimony do you want me to give?
Yeah. Like, do you want to talk about my marriage? Do you want to talk about what do you want to talk about? So we all have these stories, but can you just talk for a second to maybe somebody who wants to tell their story but doesn't have the space, the literal space, or doesn't have the knowledge? Like, I know that for me, I learned the hard way. I told somebody what happened to me in private, and it wasn't a safe space, and I didn't know that. And so it caused a lot more pain than it should have. But that's a valuable lesson that I've learned. And I just wish I had somebody who could have told me, what is this sacred space? How do I know if somebody's safe? I mean, is that something you can share?
We share with somebody that we trust, but then what if if you're clinging to other things and you can't trust somebody? And I just listened to a podcast today, and she was talking about, am I going to share and be mocked? Am I going to share and be scolded?
Sure.
Am I going to share and be, well, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have been drinking. Well, that's not what you need to hear. And so there is a place, and, and I've certainly shared my story with people that I shouldn't have shared my story. I'm an oversharer.
Yeah.
And
me too. Me too.
I have a handful of people that I can share stories with. Maybe not even a handful. I would say I have 4 trusted people that I have in my life that I tell stories. And you find your people, and you don't have to tell 20 people about your stories.
Yeah.
And I have one person that I talk to just about everything. I have a friend that I can dump, and she'll react or not react, but she's a safe listener. And but you have to be wise with your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it really, I can't do it without the Holy Spirit. I can't, because I'll go to share and it's like a break going on in your stomach. You're like, stop, and it's like what we talked about
Yes.
before we recorded. I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not. There was no break. And it was really, that feeling that you get, you almost kind of shake when you get this thing like, oh, I have to share this. Like,
Yeah. It's powerful when that happens.
and I really felt like I needed to share it. And I feel like this is a place, because there is a wounded 40-year-old woman listening to this podcast right now. And somebody did something that she doesn't really feel like it was a sexual assault, but it was something that shamed her. And how do you break that?
Yeah.
Without hearing someone else's story and without holding on to that and saying, you know what, that did happen to me and that was bad. And that wasn't my fault.
Yep.
And I am a child of God. And there is this, there's so much that we share, we dump. How do you not go back there and stay? And, 5 years ago, I made fun of triggers.
Me too. I'm just going to be honest. I didn't know what
I,
it was. I
I
said, what
thought,
do you mean a trigger?
oh,
And I'm over
please.
here triggered left and right, not knowing that I'm being triggered. It's
and,
true, though. I really
and,
didn't understand what that meant until somebody told
and,
me, and I'm okay.
it, and all of a sudden you're triggered. Well, isn't it nice to know that this happens to other people? We
Yeah.
wouldn't know this happens to other people if people didn't share
Right.
vulnerability.
Right. And it really is a natural response because your body remembers things. And that's, this
Yeah.
this whole process of healing is turning those triggers into glimmers. So you have less triggers and more glimmers. And that's the way
Yes,
I think of it.
exactly.
Like I've had a glimmer of hope and I'm going to keep having these glimmers until there are no more triggers. Like that's, I don't know if that's a recipe or something, but that seems what has happened to me.
Yes.
And, and I find myself even in a situation this week where I caught myself and went, that didn't trigger me. And I moved on. And I'm like, hallelujah.
Yes.
Finally,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
becoming the norm and not the default of like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to avoid these spaces because it triggers me. Now I can say, that's kind of their problem. And I can move
Yeah.
on. And that's not being unkind or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to speak to the safe environment like you were talking about is
Yeah.
I had a hard time learning that I could use discretion and it wasn't keeping a secret. So there's a difference between having
Yes.
discretion and having that discernment that
Yes.
the Holy Spirit does provide you with if you ask and listen. But
Yes.
to know that I can zip my mouth, which is huge for me because I'm always talking, but to be able to close my mouth and go, they don't need to know that and they don't get to
Yes.
know that. This is
Right.
this is for me and for someone
Yes.
else that loves me and is safe. And if
And
you don't
that's
have
wisdom.
yes, and if you don't have a safe person that you feel like you can trust, find a therapist, find a coach,
Mm-hmm.
somebody,
Yes.
start small and that
Mm-hmm.
your people will grow. Like you will find them
Yes.
just like trauma people find trauma people. Safe
Yes.
people can find safe people. I have found
Yes.
that to be true for me. So,
Yes. Yeah.
wow. Wow.
And the other thing that um, I have looked at and kind of fallen to is that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. So in 2 Kings 7, there's a story of lepers sitting at a gate, and inside the city gate is a famine, and the lepers are sitting outside the gate, and they're looking at each other going, we're going to die here. Well, if we go in the gate, we're going to die. If we sit here, we're going to die. Those Syrians over there in the tents, they have food. So we have a choice. We can sit here, we can go back, or we can go forward. We're either going to live and get food or they're going to kill us. But either way, we have a 50-50 chance. Well, guess what? They go, and God makes them sound the sound of their feet. He makes it sound like it's an army, and the Syrians flee and leave their tents and let them eat everything that they want and take whatever they
Yahoo.
want.
Yeah. That's
But the biggest
awesome.
thing they did was go.
Yes.
So we tell our story and we go forward.
Mm,
We press on to abundant life. We've shined light on the dark, and so the dark can't exist anymore.
that's right.
And then we take that lamp, who's Jesus, and he shines it on our feet, and we go. And as long as we're shining that light, that shame and that darkness can't exist in that light. And yes, there's always going to be something, and it's like the next time you speak to a group, the next time, and there's always like these little things that come up. But God gives you the grace. He's so full of grace, and he holds your hand. And he says, you have this. He's held my hand so many times, I can't even count how many times he's held my hand. And guess what? When I was 14 years old and I was trashed out of my mind, he was there. He got that person out of my life. I never had to see him again. He was a relative of a really close relative. I never had to see him again in my life. God was there. He protected me. But just like what you're doing now, the obedience is so scary, isn't it? But then it's not.
Right. I agree. It's like, I'm going to be obedient until, um, well, I shouldn't say until. I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to freak out until until
Yes.
it's actually happening. And like for me, I can only speak from my own learned experience, but when I take that step, it's like, huh, okay, that wasn't so bad. And I
Yeah.
can look back to that moment, 12, 13 years ago when you told me you need to speak your story. And we went to that retreat and I told my story to about 30 beautiful women. And it was terrifying until I looked up and saw that they were just witnessing me. There was no judgment.
No.
And I thought, okay, that wasn't as scary as I thought. And I reflect on that quite a bit, like, because that was the first time publicly that I ever really told anybody what had happened to me. And since then, more memories have come, other things have come up, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized like, yeah, if I hadn't taken that first step, I couldn't be taking this step. So
Right.
obedience for me is scary until I actually jump off the ledge. Once I jump off the ledge, I'm like, this is free. This is flying, baby. That's what we're doing. Like,
So free. And
yeah.
it's
So
and it's so free. You feel so, what is
yeah,
it? You feel the shame and the condemnation and all
right.
the thoughts and all the things until you make the leap.
Yeah.
And then you go, wow, Jesus, you were right here with me the whole
Yeah.
time. You were right there. I'm the one that had to I'm the one that had to obey. I'm the one that had to move on.
Yeah.
And I refuse to be a victim.
That's it.
I just, you know, I was a victim. My dad called me poor Susie. That was my nickname when I was growing up. Oh, poor Susie. And I
Mm-hmm.
was always a victim, but it became my identity. And then I got attention that way.
Yep.
But then it's just one thing after another. And then you learn that there's victory. There's overcoming. You overcome by the blood of your testimony or by the word of your testimony and the blood of Jesus.
Yep.
And there's
It's
a cloud of
powerful.
witnesses. And you push through until the joy that was set before you. And there's so much joy on the other side of being a victim. There's so much joy being an overcomer.
Amen. And that actually is um something that I noticed in my own journey is the joy that starts to come up is pure joy like I had never experienced before because you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking like yes, I'm happy, I'm having happy moments. We're happy. This is happy. but but when things are not going the way that you expect, or things happen like you just said, like
Mhm.
we're going to have things come up, it's still well with my soul. I still
Yes.
have this
Yes.
peace that's not numbness, it's actually peace this time, that all of
Yes.
this things are happening, but that's just it. It's just what happened. It's just what's happening. It's not
Yes.
a story. It's not about me. This is just what's happening. And I can't let that affect my internal being because of these external
Yes.
things. And it
Yes.
has taken me so long, and I'm still working on it. I think we all are, but to be able to sit here and think this is peace, not numbness. And it was confusing. And I know maybe somebody relates to this. I don't know, but um to not know for sure when you kind of make that transition, you're like, am I avoiding, or is this just peace? Like, am I just avoiding this, or is this
Yes.
just peace? And it really is well with my soul. And you
Yes.
can go do you. And I don't got to
Yep.
worry about what you're saying because it doesn't affect me, because
Yes.
it's not about me. And just really return to love every time. And I, I can't make it up. Nobody can make this up. The joy
There's
is
this.
something that's just
It is.
unremarkable.
Yep.
Yeah. And I probably would have
And,
made fun of myself 10 years ago for saying that.
but there's a
um,
peace and a joy that you feel that when you're walking with the Lord and you just have his hand
yeah.
and and you just you can watch the other things. And Joyce Meyer, I'll quote her till the day I die. She said, "This is what happened to me. It doesn't define me.
That's right.
It's not who I am." And so you're going along, and everybody's going to have trials. Everybody's going to have it. Otherwise, Jesus wouldn't have talked about it. Otherwise, James wouldn't have talked about it. They wouldn't have talked about the trials if we were just going to have this great life and everything was going to be peachy keen. But
Yeah.
there's joy in it. And I do want to say this just popped in my head. A long time ago, I was single and I went to go have a pregnancy test. And I don't know, it was the days, before you could go to Dollar General and buy a pregnancy test for $1 or whatever they are. But I I went into a pregnancy resource center, and the woman said to me, "Well, what are you going to do if it's positive? Do you have a plan? Are you okay?" Just wanted to chat with me. She was the kindest woman. I sat and talked to her for probably an hour. And so I want to tell your listeners, if you don't have anybody that talks to you, there are victim hotlines, there are victim advocacy. You could call your local sheriff department and say, "This isn't an emergency, but do you have a hotline? Do you have a suicide hotline? Do you have a victims hotline? Do you have a nearby you can?" Most churches have prayer cards. You can write an anonymous prayer card, or you could put your name on it and somebody would call you and say, "Could I pray with you?"
Yeah. It takes
There's
a lot of courage to do
resources.
that, to reach out for resources. And when you don't know how to be seen, it's really hard to take that first step.
It's very
So
hard. But just like what Valerie and I just talked about, the obedience and hearing this, all of us had to take a first step. I had to walk through the doors of a church. I was raised Catholic. I had to walk through the doors of a church all by myself. I knew nobody. I had been a victim my whole life. And I walked through these doors. I didn't know anybody. I went and sat in the front row and just plopped down with my daughter. And that day changed my life forever. I have no idea how I got that gumption in me. I don't know. I know it was God, but I don't know how I got so brave to make the drive. I didn't tell anybody where I was going. I just went. And I pray that one of your listeners that's listening right now drives by a pregnancy resource center and goes, "Hey, I bet there's somebody in there that I can talk to." They're there because they care. they're there because they want to talk to people. And there are so many people out there that want to care, that want to listen, that want to witness your pain and be there for you. And Jesus always has you. And there's one thing to tell your story, and then there's another thing to grab onto the hand of Jesus Christ and tell your story. Because he's the protector, he's the provider. He's the father I never had. He held me. He said in the book of Romans, he said I was adopted. He adopted me. He cared enough. And that's how you tell your story. Tell your story in the light.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I know somebody needed to hear that. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to get through all of these shows without
I don't
crying
know.
every single time.
I don't know. And I get really preachy because I don't know how else other to be than
Well,
preachy.
I have to say, Miss Susan, you are the definition of defiance of silence because you are not going to be quiet anymore, or you haven't been quiet for a long time. But I do hope that somebody somewhere, whoever needed to hear anything that was said today, was that they heard exactly what they needed to hear, and that they will reach out for help if they need it. In the show notes, there'll be resources. Obviously, it's going to differ where you live, but there's some national hotlines and things that will be in the show notes. And if you can't find somebody to hold some space with you, search us up for the podcast, send us a message. We'll figure out somebody that can talk to you. So one thing I do want to talk about just briefly before we end is it's important to know when you are holding space for somebody and you are being a sacred witness, that you understand that you are just merely holding that for them and holding that space, that what you've shared was not for me to take on. Not everyone in their healing journey is as far along as others. So maybe there's still a lot of pain being expressed and things like that. And I know for people that really care deeply and they want to hold the space, but then we take it on and then we become burdened by what was shared with us. And that sometimes comes along with a price tag. So what would you say, and what's your personal practice when you do hold that kind of space? Because you do mentoring and all these other things, and you've been such a beautiful example of how to do that. What is your process for letting that stuff go and knowing that you can release this and not carry it? Like you just briefly hold it and then let it go. What is your personal process? And what would you say for our listeners today before we go to help them release what they've heard today?
I have two things. I journal, and I have two trusted people that I tell my stories of other people. And what happens is, I mean, I'm not going to tell your story to somebody, but they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I have a trusted person that lives in a different country.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. So they don't have that emotional, they didn't sit with that person face to face.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I tell them, this is what happened today.
Yeah.
And nobody knows I tell them
until
now.
Well, your witnessing needed a witness. I guess everybody's gonna need a witness in some way, right?
It's not like telling somebody secrets. It's just I have to share this, and sometimes I don't.
Right.
But some things it's so heavy that you have to. And I have a pastor in another country that I talk to, and I have a trusted friend that that lives away. So when I'm mentoring people here, she has no idea who they are. And it's someone where I can bounce things off of. But mostly I journal, and I ask God, like, what do I take on, and what do I let go? And sometimes I hang on to things. Let's be honest. Sometimes it really, wow, that was just really huge.
Yeah.
And the other day I heard a story, and still, it was more than I ever wanted to hear. And I had to just, Lord, you're going to have to take this, because I can't even repeat it.
Yeah.
And Lord, you're just going to have to take it from me, because I don't know what else to do with this. I can't repeat it to anyone.
Yeah.
I can't even talk about it. And so that I'm in constant prayer. I don't know how else to do life. I hope that helps, but I hope that I know that it's a conversation. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And with the Lord, and I journal a lot. I have mounds and mounds of journals that I don't know what I'm going to do with, because when I die, I'm not sure that I want my kids going through.
I was going to say, I journal too, but I tend to just rip the pages out once it's out, because I never go back and read them anyway. So I just decided I'm just going to rip the pages out, because what if I get hit by a bus tomorrow? I don't want anybody to find these.
Some of them I still use some of my journals.
I guess if, you wrote something really profound and you want to use it later, but I never go back and read them. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Susan. I'm so honored. You are such a gift to me and to all the listeners. And anytime you want to come back, I would love to have you back, and we can talk about something else. Thank you.
I like hanging out with your brave self.
I really love you.
I love you.
And just like any other time you listen to the show, if anything you found today was hard to hear, or you found yourself feeling activated and needing some help, please reach out to a local resource or to a trusted friend. Don't just keep this all to yourself, and just know that you are loved. And thank you for bearing sacred witness with us today. Thank you for being a sacred witness for today's episode. If this conversation has brought up difficult feelings, please remember to take care of yourself in whatever way you need. Healing is not a straight line, and you do not have to walk this alone, okay? So if you need additional support, please reach out to a trusted friend, a professional, or a resource in your community. There's resources listed in the show notes as well. Your well-being matters the most, so thank you for being here and choosing to listen with care. Until next time, remember that you are loved and worthy of being witnessed.